Steph Curry makes history while his Warriors take away all hopes of the Sacramento Kings avoiding the play-in. At this point, is the best case scenario for the Kings even good? We'll discuss that. Plus, Keon Ellis returning to the starting lineup. Does it need to happen? It's all right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News, 1:30 to 1:04. That's the final here from the Chase Center. The good news is the Sacramento Kings and Golden State Warriors don't have to play each other anymore this season unless somehow it happens in the playoffs or the Warriors fall apart and end up a play-in team or whatever. But during the regular season, the Kings and Warriors are done playing each other. The bad news is because the Kings lost tonight, they pretty much lost all chances at having a tiebreaker, and I am more than happy, or no, not happy, excuse me. I'm more than ready to say the Kings are out of any conversation for avoiding the play-in and making it to the 6th seed, which the Warriors currently hold now by, I think, a 4.5 game advantage. We'll get to that more later on in the show. First and foremost, before we get into anything, congratulations, Steph Curry, right? 4,000 career three-pointers just during the regular season. That does not include his three-pointers in his playoffs and all the NBA Finals runs and NBA championships that he has. But 4,000 regular season three-pointers is unbelievable. Being able to be here to witness history. Look, I know I'm from the Sacramento Kings perspective. The Warriors drive me freaking nuts. But being able to witness that, and I'll be honest with you, I know I've said this before on the podcast, and don't throw your tomatoes at me, Kings fans, but like to me, Steph Curry is one of my absolute all-time favorite players to watch. Every time I get the privilege of watching Steph Curry, I jump at the opportunity. To me, Steph Curry is absolutely 100% on the Mount Rushmore, on the GOAT list for me. He's just absolutely incredible. So being here to witness that moment was pretty cool, especially considering that other than that, Steph didn't really do much. He had 11 points tonight, 2 of 6 shooting from three-point range. That was it. Here's the problem, though. The Golden State Warriors as a team had 22 threes. Steph had 2 of the Warriors' 22 threes. Draymond Green, for God's sake, had 4 threes. Draymond Green went 4 of 7 from three-point range. He opened up this game hitting back-to-back corner threes, and I knew at that point, oh, God, this is going to be a rough night for Sacramento. Draymond, 23 points, 8 of 14 from the field, 4 of 7 from three-point range. I mean, I guess if there's going to be anybody to beat you, I guess you want it to be that guy, but how about just not getting beat? How about just not leaving every single shooter not named Steph Curry wide open from three-point range like the Kings did tonight? I understand it's part of your game plan if you're going to dare those guys to beat you and leave them open. But if they start hitting shots, hey, maybe you change your strategy up a little bit, because the Kings got absolutely torched by this Warriors team as a whole. 88, 101, 103, 98, 116, 109, 111. That might sound like a group of random numbers, but that is the amount of points in each game that the Sacramento Kings have given up since February 24th, except for the last 2. The most points they gave up was that 116 points in their loss to the Denver Nuggets. The defense has been really solid over that stretch. Over the last 2 games, the Kings have given up 133 points to the Knicks and now 130 points tonight to the Golden State Warriors. Suddenly, poof, defense gone. And yes, a lot of those games with those really good defensive numbers, like the 88 points, that was against Charlotte, right? There was a game against Utah in there, a game against a wounded Dallas, the game against San Antonio, right? This is what we've been talking about. And as much as I've wanted to enjoy and appreciate the way the Sacramento Kings were playing basketball, especially defensively, and how they've been handling their business against bad teams, I was always concerned about how this team would look and how that success would translate against good teams. The Warriors are one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. They kicked your ass. We saw what the New York Knicks did to the Sacramento Kings earlier this week inside the Golden One Center. And the Kings have even harder opponents to come over the next couple weeks. That's just the state of this team. Meanwhile, offensively, the Kings' offense hasn't scored over 110 points in the last 5 games, right? Offensively, that's the bread and butter of this Sacramento Kings team. 110, 109, 110, 104, and 104. And one of those 110-point games was a overtime loss to the LA Clippers. This Kings team is struggling to score the basketball. They're just straight up struggling to score. So what is the identity of this Sacramento Kings team? I have no freaking clue. Because defensively, they play well against bad teams, but suddenly they're not playing as well against bad teams. Offensively, they've had a couple good games, like they scored 123 versus the San Antonio Spurs, and also, I think they got 120 versus the Dallas Mavericks. So again, against bad teams, they can score the basketball. And I know they're missing Domantas Sabonis, and Malik Monk is just coming back from an injury. This is just his second game back. But offensively, this team looks like a shell of themselves. And when you have DeMar DeRozan and Zach freaking LaVine on your team, you should not be struggling to score as much as the Sacramento Kings are. Speaking of Malik Monk, look, it's not all on Malik. And it's not fair to hyper-focus on Malik. But the reality is, 2 games back, the defense has been bad. And I told you, I said the defense has been really good. It's really, really fun. But it is not realistic to expect both Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis, who hopefully will be back maybe tomorrow versus the Phoenix Suns. It's not realistic to expect them both to come back and for them that not to have some sort of negative impact on the Sacramento Kings defense. Well, it has. Now, it's not Malik's fault. It's not like teams are scoring 130 points simply because Malik Monk is giving up points left and right. But the first quarters have been atrocious for Sacramento. After that was something that was really good for the Kings during that stretch where they were winning basketball games, right? They were coming out and setting the tone defensively, which was leading to good offense as well. But the Sacramento Kings were doing a really, really good job at building a good lead early on and setting that tone and carrying that confidence through the course of the game. These last 2 games, y'all, the Kings were down 37-22 at the end of the first quarter versus the Knicks, and tonight they were down 30-18 at the end of the first quarter. Go back to Keon Ellis starting. And I'm not saying that Keon Ellis is the savior. I don't think anybody is saying that. Or if you are, you need to be a little realistic. But Keon Ellis, the proof is in the pudding. You watch Keon Ellis play, you look at the record as with Keon Ellis as a starter. Is he the best player on this team? No. He would be the 4th or 5th best player in that starting lineup. But he brings to that starting lineup what this team lacks. He helps establish a defensive physicality, especially on the perimeter. He gets that side going. He sets the tone that the Sacramento Kings just straight up fail to set when he is not in the starting lineup. I asked Keon Ellis after the game about the differences between setting the tone as a starter versus setting the tone coming off the bench, and he gave some interesting comments and some interesting answers.
Keon, of course, you don't control whether or not you start or come off the bench, but is your approach any different when you do come off the bench, and how can you try and get that the same impact that you have as a starter? How can you bring that in with that second unit when you do come in?
I don't think my focus is any different than when I'm starting and when I'm not. But the only preparation that could possibly be different is just I honestly couldn't tell you. I kind of go into all the games starting or not the same way. But if I am starting, you're kind of just already out there, so you're getting to it from the get go. So when you're on the bench, you can kind of see what plays they're running, what are they trying to get to. And things like that. So kind of get a feel for the game a little bit before you get in. But I would say that's probably the only difference between starting and not starting. So when I'm in there, I just try to do what I can to help the team. So, the minutes thing doesn't really matter.
And kind of building off that, though, is it easier or harder to set the tone as a starter versus coming off the bench when, like you said, you get that information, you see how the game's playing, but right from the jump as a starter, you can kind of set that tone?
It's a great question. I think it depends, if you're starting and, you kind of have to be locked in from the gate. So if you go down, then I think it's, it kind of shifts to the bench to to come in and bring that spark to put us back. So, I mean, I think it just depends on the situation of the game. You know, if you come in, if you're coming off the bench and, you know, the team is down, you kind of have to bring that focus and that mentality as if you were starting, you know, and as soon as you get in there, it's time to go. So I don't truly think there's too much of a difference, but regardless, I think we do have to start start the game better, obviously.
So again, this is not all a Keon Ellis versus Malik Monk thing. Keon Ellis tonight did have a better game. He had 18 points and 4 assists off the bench. Malik Monk struggled, 7 points, 3 of 13 from the field, but had 6 assists, right? It's not, it's easy to overreact to these last 2 games and go, yeah, Malik is Malik is the problem. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But I'm trying to tell you, and what we've seen is that when Keon Ellis starts, things look different. Things look better. It doesn't mean he has to play a boatload of minutes and that he's any more important than Malik Monk, but he fits better out the gate for what the Sacramento Kings are trying to do. And we have seen over 2 years how good Malik Monk is off of the bench. Now, Malik, when he first came into the starting lineup back in December, was playing really, really well. But guess what? He was playing next to De'Aaron Fox at the time, where Fox could still be that shot creator, scoring, attack the basket type guard, where Malik could run his 2-man game with Domantas Sabonis and play a little more off ball, and specifically didn't have the opposing team's best perimeter defender focusing on him. Now that Fox is gone, Malik has not been as effective in that role. That is not a coincidence. Malik Monk is very gifted coming off the bench in a 6-man role. You know this. Go back to it. Keon Ellis has given you a lot of success setting the tone and establishing yourself out of the gate when he starts. You know this, so go back to it. And if your concern in making this move is pissing off Malik Monk or damaging an ego, that's something you have to live with. I'm not pretending that Doug Christie's job is easy. I'm not pretending that managing player egos is easy. And I understand Malik Monk would probably be pissed off if that were to happen. But at this point, you got to win basketball games, and you were winning when Keon was starting. You have been winning with Keon was starting, and you were winning a lot of games with Malik Monk coming in off the bench. So I think it's about time to try it for a game. Try it against Phoenix, or try it against one of these better teams when Cleveland comes to town, or whoever. Try it. And if you still have a horrendous first quarter, then scrap it and go back. But give it a shot. Because right now, what you're doing, I don't think it's an overreaction to 2 games. It's not all Malik's fault, but the Sacramento Kings have proven time and time again that they look better with Malik coming in off the bench and Keon Ellis helping establish that tone. I know Keon's not a pure point guard either, so there are concerns there. But, man, go back to it. Give it a shot. You know, I asked Doug Christie about it, and of course he had Malik Monk's back, and I don't blame Christie for these comments. I disagree with them, but at least here's what Kings interim head coach Doug Christie had to say about the possibility of going back to a Keon Ellis starting lineup over Malik.
Doug, before these last 2 games, the starts were really good and really consistent for your team. These last 2 that kind of slowed down, I think some people might see Malik's return and question that aspect of it. Kind of a 2-parter. One is Malik getting reacclimated to this group, and the second part is there any consideration at all to going back to what was working beforehand?
No, because we've won a lot of games with Malik in that position. I think that injuries and, like, when you guys look at it as, like, this present iteration of what happened. And what you got to understand is that before Domas got hurt, before Malik got hurt, they were starting to find their way as a unit. And once a guy gets hurt, you bring him back, you got to trust them. You got to let them find their game. And it's unfortunate that it's happening at this time. We're going to go the same thing if Domas plays tomorrow. He's going to play his minutes, and it's a possibility that he's rusty. It's a possibility that the flow's not there. Like, those are things that happen that are you can't necessarily control. But what you do have to do is you have to trust your guys. They've put in a lot of work. They deserve that opportunity because when they are playing at a high level, it's beautiful to see.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy, all so you can get the most money back, guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, and no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where the heck did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, all those subscriptions too, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, Chief Financial Officer, giving you visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. You'll get some surprising insights from Monarch Money. When I personally started using Monarch, I realized just how much money I was spending on food. The big one for my wife and I is coffee, right? Now I budget smarter and have a better understanding of, hey, how much money I was spending towards those things or delivery apps or things of that nature, subscriptions, right? Now I can do a better job at setting a goal for how much money I want to spend at those places and dialing that spending back. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, now it's time for another daily dose of Matt George pessimism. Not that everything to this point has been that optimistic after the Kings' 130-104 loss to the Warriors tonight. Let's talk about best case scenario for the Sacramento Kings at this point. Specifically, is their best case scenario at this point even that good? Is it even a good thing? Like I said, I'm taking the Kings out of any kind of conversation for a top 6 spot and avoiding the play-in. I know it's still, of course, mathematically possible, but given the opponents coming up, the fact that the Kings basically lost their tiebreaker to the Golden State Warriors tonight, and they're 4.5 games back of the Warriors in 6, forget about it. And even getting to 7th at this point feels like a pipe dream because the Kings are 4 games back of the T-Wolves in 7th, and the T-Wolves are playing really good basketball right now, so forget about that. They are 2.5 games back of the Clippers in 8th. That's still possible, but I'm going to say it's not going to happen. Again, considering the strength of schedule and the quality of opponents that the Kings have coming through the Golden One Center over the remainder of the month of March. Also, by the way, the Kings are just 1 game ahead of Dallas in 10th. So it's more likely this team could drop to 10th and lose a home play-in game than move up to 8th and avoid the 9th or 10th dreaded play-in spots, right? It's very, very possible for the Kings. Look, I'm just going to call my shot. I hope I'm wrong, and if I am, we can play this back and you can laugh at me. I think the Kings are going to finish in 9th or 10th. I think they'll be able to hold on to 9th. I don't believe in Dallas. They're a wounded animal, and the Phoenix Suns are just atrocious. So I don't believe in that. I think the Kings, where they're at, is where they're going to be. I think they're going to be 9th again. Second straight year, they're 9th. And yay, we'll get a home play-in game against either Dallas or Phoenix. And maybe they win that game. Let's say they make it out of the play-in. Let's say the Kings are 9th. They win that home play-in game. They do what they weren't able to do last season. And they win the, let's say, 8th, 9th play-in game on the road. And they make it to the 8th seed in the Western Conference. Now, technically, that's an improvement on last season, right? Because they were eliminated by the New Orleans Pelicans in that play-in game. Didn't even make it to the playoffs last year. But if they make it in that way, all of that works out, and the Kings do get 2 home playoff games inside the Golden One Center, do we really feel good? After the Kings will be likely swept, maybe get a game, if that, against the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's what's going to happen. Right? And I'm really not trying to crap on your parade. I'm just looking at this from a realistic perspective of where this organization, where this franchise is at. It was the goal of this organization to make the playoffs this year by any means necessary. But are these means good? The Kings have completely, I think, screwed their future up. Completely screwed their future up. Regardless of what happens in these playoffs. They're going into a summer where they're going to have to make some tough decisions, and I mean, it sounds brutal. Like, heads might have to roll. I don't know. Like, it's going to be a very, very aggressive summer, I think, for the Sacramento Kings. Do we feel good at all about what it has taken to get the Kings to a point where, best case scenario, they make it out of the play-in, they make it to the playoffs, and they get their ass whooped by the Oklahoma City Thunder? Because that's what's going to happen, right? And I'm not trying to disrespect this Kings roster, although I'm probably am very clearly doing that. The OKC Thunder are elite, right? Like, the OKC Thunder, I think, are going to be the NBA champions this year. They are unbelievably good. They're unbelievably deep. They have a matchup for everything good the Sacramento Kings do, and the Kings don't have answers for anything good that they do, right? I think the Thunder would absolutely roll the Sacramento Kings in a best-of-7 playoff series. So maybe you say, hey, Matt, and feel free to chime in at Matt George Sack on Twitter or Blue Sky. You can email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Chime in the comment section down below if you want. You might say, hey, Matt, given everything that's happened this season, all the craziness, all the chaos, the Kings making the playoffs, I would celebrate that. That would make me feel good. Okay, so it's a win for your feelings. But does it mean anything for the Sacramento Kings? If it leads to changes not happening that I think need to happen, like, for example, changing the front office because, we made the playoffs, we accomplished our goal, we made it there, so how could we fire anybody, right? We ended up getting there. It's a good win for us. It feels like a participation trophy. And I am not of the belief that the Sacramento Kings are in any position where they should feel good about their present and certainly not their future. So making it to the playoffs and getting your ass kicked by the Oklahoma City Thunder at this point, making it via the play-in, doesn't feel like an improvement to me. Doesn't feel like a win to me. Doesn't feel like a good best-case scenario. Again, I'm not trying to crap on you if that's what you're rooting hard for, if you're putting all your eggs in that basket and you want to see that happen, and it still very possibly could happen. I wouldn't put my money on it personally. I don't think this Kings team is making it out of the play-in, but if they do, you absolutely can celebrate it, feel excited about it, and be happy that the Kings are at least playing in a playoff series regardless of the result. And look, I know how lit the Golden One Center would be, right? The pregame for Games 3 and Games 4 in the Golden One Center would be awesome, but as soon as there's a tip-off and the Kings lose by 15 points, after that, we'll go into a summer and go, hey, that was fun. Okay, now this sucks again. I don't know. I think this Kings future is in bad shape. I think this best-case scenario is pretty unlikely as it is. And to be honest with you, I don't even think the best-case scenario is good. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, all the things we love about March Madness, and even, of course, who is cutting down the nets at the end of it all. There's so many fun ways to play. You can pick your favorites to make it out of the bracket like you would any kind of bracket challenge. You can stay locked in with the action all March long during the entire tournament with FanDuel. And the best part, it's easy and it's fast. Just like the action is going to be fast, and there'll be a lot of games coming at you at once, being able to stay on top of those games and bet on those games and have some fun with those games. It's all very doable and simple on FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on college hoops action all tournament long. A couple more things before we wrap up. I don't think there's any other way to put this. I thought this was a completely unacceptable game from Zach LaVine. 14 points, 5 of 6 shooting from the field, a perfect 4 of 4 from three-point range. Super efficient, but 6 shot attempts. That's inexcusable, especially for a team right now that's struggling offensively. Zach LaVine's job is to score. He is a scorer. He is a weapon. That is his job. If he is not scoring, I'm not saying he doesn't give you anything else, because he had a few assists and had some rebounds and blah, 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 blah. But Zach LaVine is making the money that he is making because of his ability as a pure 3-level scorer. Now, I understand he had Jimmy Butler guarding him for a lot of the night, and Jimmy Butler is a very, very good defender. But, Zach, you got to do better than that. You got to do better than that, man. Every single Kings starter and 2 bench guys shot more attempts than Zach LaVine did. And a third bench guy in Trey Lyles shot the same amount of attempts. Jonas Valanciunas took 1 more shot than Zach LaVine did in this game. And he played 18 minutes less than LaVine did. I'm not accusing LaVine of being lazy. I'm not saying LaVine isn't an aggressive player and didn't try and get his tonight. But, dude, 6 shot attempts when this team is playing a game that they have to win. They're in a desperation win to make it in mode right now. And offensively, they have been struggling, especially without Domantas Sabonis. And Malik Monk is trying to get reacclimated. 6 shot attempts? That can't happen. That absolutely cannot happen. Zach LaVine has to be better, and I hope he takes a boatload of shots tomorrow night. I mean, I don't want to see him chuck 30 shots just for the sake of shooting, but God, I mean, Doug Christie said like he needs to be taking 16 shots minimum a game, not 6. Hopefully we get back to that version of Zach LaVine tomorrow night against Phoenix. Speaking of which, you damn well better beat Phoenix tomorrow. Right? You have to. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't care if it's on the second night of a back-to-back. I don't care if you're tired. All those excuses, I mean, they already didn't matter. They matter even less than don't matter. You damn well better beat the Phoenix Suns tomorrow. If the Kings lose to the Phoenix Suns, I'm looking at that draft pick. I'm looking right at it, and I'm going, man, I know the Kings are still in it. I know they're still in the hunt. I know they still have a wish upon a star to make it through the play-in and into the playoffs. I'm going with the more surefire bet, which is protecting that draft pick. Now, this is me talking. This is not the Sacramento Kings talking. But I think if the Kings lose to the Phoenix Suns tomorrow night, they should look long and hard at how do we keep this draft pick that is top 12 protected. If not, it goes to the Atlanta Hawks. Right now, that draft pick is slated to be 14th. You're a play-in team. Hooray. You're probably not making the playoffs. Hooray. You lose your draft pick. You're going into a summer where you're kind of stuck. Or you have tough decisions to make and hard moves to make. A blow-up, I don't think that's where we're headed. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying bring out the tank, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a tank parked out front of the Golden One Center if the Sacramento Kings managed to lose tomorrow night to Phoenix and then come home for a meeting with, oh yeah, the Cleveland Cavaliers on Wednesday. Oh, I'm sorry, the Memphis Grizzlies on Monday, then the Cleveland Cavaliers on Wednesday. Yeah, 4 home games for the Sacramento Kings next week. Grizzlies, Cavs, Bulls on the second night of a back-to-back. Hopefully they can win that game. And then the Bucks on Saturday, who just beat the crap out of the Lakers tonight. Oh, yeah, and then you have Boston and OKC early the following week. So no big deal. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. It'll be good. It'll be great. I don't know, man. Let me know how you feel. You can tell I'm getting sick. The Kings are making me sick. Being in the Chase Center, it's a beautiful building. I always get sick when I'm here. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. At MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. And, of course, you can leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Appreciate your support, especially if you disagree with me. I love the conversation. I don't pretend to be even close to right about everything. This is just my feeling on this situation. You know, if you've been following Locked On Kings this season, you know how I feel about the state of this team and franchise right now. It is not good, and it just gets worse and worse. Or my feelings, my concerns get reaffirmed with every performance like we saw against the Warriors tonight, against the Knicks earlier this week, and then I think we have a lot more of those coming with some of the teams coming through the Golden One Center next week and beyond. I'll see you on the next episode, no matter what. My name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.